do the thing. So anyway, the tit for tat one actually worked. That said, if you say you just treat you first of all, you cooperate with the actual person that you meet at the first meeting. But then whenever that person does something, you treat them that way the next time. So if they lie the next time, then the next time you meet them, you lie. But then if you meet them again and they keep lying, you keep lying. But once they switch to the other point, you switch over. So there's actually a selection in nature in that we've studied that seems to show why something like morality could actually be there. And I think that is key to this belief in God. That's key to the whole religion aspect, and part of why we're talking about, like, that's a story. It's a story that we tell, because often when you start getting in a debate with somebody who's a believer, and I'm thankful to the people who actually choose to actually get into debates on these things. Most of the time, they just don't want to talk about it. It's just something that in a room in a compartment they don't want to open. But the ones that often do it, more often than not, it will come to an argument from morality rather than veracity. They'll start saying, "But if this isn't true, we'll do these bad things. These other bad things will happen." So they'll be like, "So even if you could convince us it's not true, all these other bad things would happen." So I think for most people who claim that, they seem to have gotten themselves into a rationalization to think that their morality is based off of accepting or saying they at least accept this. Whether or not that thing is accurate or not isn't important. It's just that is a social construct that we've developed that supports that, rather than it being the inverse, that is a social construct that was developed to make sense of our morality, not the inverse of this was something that was actually there, and then we developed morality based off of this. It's the inverse, I think, that people don't really realize.
Well said. What I was going to add to this too is we just talked a little bit about the woke religious fanatics trying to indoctrinate people into their belief system. You see a similar trend with them too, where they act like, oh, if we don't run everything, somehow we're going to go back to segregation and women being in the kitchen and all this. It's the same basic moral argument. Like, if our belief system is not in place, everything's going to fall apart and the world's going to go to hell. And then that gets to the point of, well, how many people don't follow your belief system and how many people are pushing for those things anyway? Like, I was talking to our friend Edward yesterday, and he made the point that, like, even most actual racist and sexist people, they don't just sit around thinking, how do we ruin the lives of minorities and women? Like, they have other things to do. And then it's like the average person on the street, of course, much less. So but they have this attitude like, if we're not in charge and control of everything, this is going to happen. And it's a very cynical view of just people in general. Like, we can talk about rationality versus irrationality, how informed are people this, but like, I don't think the average person on the street is malicious. And that's even why the book is called Cynical Theories, because it's a very cynical view of most people, which I think is very sad, honestly.
Yeah. And then this carries on. And that's, again, maybe where the self-selecting in the people that we know and we've met. And in the past, I did share some of these fears, but because I realize we're animals. I don't think we're different than animals. Yeah. And I look at most animals. Most animals don't. No other animal we know of has a belief in a God, but they're not just out raping and murdering each other. That's a convention that humans had. And then certain humans that say it's due to religion that reduces that. I ask them personally, are you not raping and pillaging personally because of your faith? Is that the only thing keeping you from raping and pillaging? And then if not, and that's how it is with, I'd be very surprised if one person really listened to this would really, if they just stopped believing in their wherever they believe in God, and would just wake up tomorrow and just rape and pillage just constantly until they get caught. If you realize that you don't want to do those things for other things not based on your belief, why do you think other people would need the belief to do that? And sure, there might be some people out there who you could find that something's wrong in their brain, or they just don't have a few things that they have to develop some kind of construct, and that's a key part to it. But I think that you'd find that's not the case for most people. And
no.
It's tough imagining, and I see that. I see how depressed some people are who do claim to believe some of these things, and it's a scary world that some of these people propose. And yeah.
And the sad thing with this too is it becomes a vicious cycle, because what it is some of these people, they have a cynical view of certain people, so they won't interact with them. But then they continue to believe that those people are bad, and they continue to distance themselves from them. Then they only associate with other people who have the same toxic ideas, while they continue to carry the same negative views of those people. And in reality, if they realize the people are not the monsters that they think they are, they might meet some new good people who would uplift them, and their lives would be better for it. But they're convinced for various irrational reasons that those people are bad, and it's just dragging them down. Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we are selected. Our genes are selected for reproduction.
Yeah.
So we are not selected for valuing honesty over conformity, and then for valuing conformity over safety. Like, it's safety first, and then, okay, if we can be safe and conform to other beings in our area, that's better. If we can be safe, conform, and honest, that's better on top of it. But I think when it comes to something like honesty and truth, that is one of the lower things. That's something that is really something that has become valued and has become a virtue rather recently in human civilization due to many other advancements that we had, because it was normally just reacting to things in nature. You didn't really have to. You didn't even really have the concept of something true or false. Like I don't think a dog like when you have the dog and you like do the thing and you like, or you pretend you're throwing the thing and the dog looks and thinks it's not like, oh, this human is lying to me. Like, it's this every time it happens, the dog really thinks the ball has been thrown. I don't think they understand the concept of circuitry. But then with some of these things, aren't there times when like a dog will break something and then it'll seem to be like kind of hiding? They've shown some things like that. So there's some different levels of definitions of expression that you can certainly see, and it's not the same with every dog. Certain dogs are smarter than other ones, and within those species, there's also smarter versions of that. So we might get to a point where we might actually see. There might be a point where we actually see an actual other Earthling achieve sentience, and that's something that could be coming. It could be really awesome to actually. I don't think it's going to happen in my lifetime, but with evolution, you don't know. Maybe there's a gorilla being born today that's going to like say the first gorilla word ever. Like, I don't know these things, but it's kind of interesting to think that. But just the one thing that is rather certain to me is friendships, civilizations, societies, communities seem to be more organized over the lies they agree to tell each other and accept, rather than the truth. Because if it's just truth, you just point out what's true. Anyone can walk in and out of any location and point out what's true. But it takes somebody who's familiar with that location and in-group to understand that in this location, we don't talk about that because there's all these other reasons built of why we don't talk about that, or why we say this is one way rather than it just being the way it is. So I think that's a key thing. And that's not inherently negative, but to me, I value relationships, associations, friendships based off of the amount of honesty and truth and reality. The closer it is to that, and I do understand that is something that's more of a privilege, and that's something that I don't take for granted, and something that's granted to me as an option due to many other things that other people have done that I'm really thankful for them having done to be at this point in time. Yeah.
I have to ask Edward, we were talking about social metaphysics yesterday, and it was the whole idea about like Ayn Rand talked a lot about it. Nathaniel Branden definitely continued it. It's the whole idea of like people who do things not based on, is this right? Do I agree with it? But rather, is this popular? Will this get approval? And I think what it is unfortunately a lot of people are more in the social metaphysical camp. And he explained, I'm trying to think if it was Emerson, it may have been somebody else. They wrote an essay about this like way before Branden's time. But the idea of like, he's like, you know how to basically, he didn't word it this way, but his basic argument was how to get out of becoming a social metaphysicist. Go into the woods and just survive on your own, and then come back to society and ask, how many of these people do you need? How many of them do you want? Does their approval matter? And I think in a modern world, I mean, I'm not saying you have to do that, obviously, but like, I think put yourself in some situation, like move somewhere where you're alone, do something in some situation where you have to really figure things out. Then you realize you can make new friends, you can meet new people, you can do things for yourself. And, you know, obviously I'm not saying don't be social. You'll still make friends and have connections, but you're a self-determined person doing it based on the facts of reality. Whereas previously you're so dependent on everyone else that's why you follow the group. That's why you're scared to speak out of turn. That's why all this, because it hinges on what does the group approve rather than you doing what's best for you. And then people will supplement and help embrace and enhance that. I gotta find that essay. I'm trying to remember. He mentioned it all, but I'm gonna ask him. I'm gonna try and read that later, though.
Yeah, do that. That'd be interesting seeing that, because that's true. Like, be an agent. Actually exercise your agency in your day-to-days. There's many things that you can just default in, but I think it improves completely. And even when you exercise that agency, you might find out that the thing that you default into, that you initially just had that instinct, this is what you're going to do, you might find that's actually what you end up doing anyway. But the fact that you actually chose it and you thought about it will make it actually stronger for you to actually do it. Because now some of the things that you default into, there might be some things that you just drop suddenly because something else comes along or some few conditions change. But if you've actually thought and selected into it, then you might be in a position because you chose to do it based on more empirical evidence, more solid evidence. When that thing that would have made you drop it happens, instead of dropping it, you say, I'm going to stick on it, or I might just put it aside for a bit and come back to it later, rather than just leaving it at the side. So just being an agent, if you listen to this right now, you live in an unprecedented time in human history where you probably have more access to choice in your actual day-to-day life than any of your ancestors have. And it's a damn shame if you're not actually taking advantage of that and actually utilizing that in your life. Yeah.
But again, it relates to the point of what you and I have done about we develop ourselves, we develop our values, and we seek out people accordingly. A lot of other people, unfortunately, just go with the flow because it's easier. They perceive it as less risky and all that. And ultimately, people rob themselves of their true potential, as you're saying, because it's like you don't have to do that. We're not stuck. You're not stuck in some tribe in the wild where these are the only people you'll interact with, and if you go against them, they're going to kill or kick you out. That's not going to happen. You have the ability to seek out other people and do other things.
Yeah.
All right.
Huh.
All right. Next.
Thank you for listening. This has been a clip from an actual longer recording that I'll try to leave a link to on the screen or somewhere around here where you're listening to this.
Presents. 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 Presents.
Peasants.
Okay. Okay.